Hello and welcome back to the channel. So this week I'm going to go through my tips to get back into running. So this is aimed at somebody who's maybe a beginner to running, or somebody who's taken some time off and doesn't really know where to start, or is a bit scared to get going. Hopefully these tips will give you a little bit of confidence and show you the sort of thing that you can do to get fit for running quickly and start enjoying it so that you can really get into it. If you enjoy the video, please make sure to subscribe. It goes a long way in kind of keeping the channel alive and getting the videos seen. So I really appreciate when you do that. So with that being said, here we go. Let's get started with the tips. People tend to really love or hate running. If they love it, they'll do it every day. They can't live without it. It's a part of their routine. And if they hate it, they're generally trying to avoid it at all costs. What I've noticed is that the people who really like running aren't always very good runners. They're not people who are going to win races, but they have found a way to enjoy it and really build it into their lifestyles. And they really enjoy going on holidays running and entering marathons and fun runs and collecting medals and t-shirts, and it becomes a part of a lifestyle. But then the people who don't do it seem to have this expectation like they need to win races, or they need to be really good, or people are going to be watching them, when in reality that's not really the case. And I think when people start off running and they have these sort of expectations, they start to really resent running because they feel under pressure to get faster or to get better, when actually they should just be trying to find a way to enjoy it and to find their kind of running. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. So with that in mind, here's our first tip.
So you definitely don't need to be running every single day. It's probably better to run little and often and let yourself recover than it is to go out and do a big long run on one day and then kind of leave it for too long. So, if you're going to get 10 minutes of running done every kind of second day, that's probably better than running for an hour this week and then leaving it for 2 or 3 weeks before you come back to it. It's nice to kind of stay within yourself. You should always leave the session feeling like you could do more, because then generally you can. If you leave the session feeling beat up and sore, then the next day you might not be able to run at all, and it could be a few days till you get back to it. So it's much better to stay within what you can recover from, because you'll make a lot more steady progress that way, and you'll be a lot more consistent with your running rather than kind of starting and stopping and running this week and not next week. That's generally the best way to go.
Tip number 2, run slow. You don't need to be running fast to improve your fitness. Just by getting out and getting a little bit of elevation of your heart rate, you're actually going to be getting a fitness improvement. And time on feet for somebody back to running is probably more important than speed. You don't need to be setting PRs every time you go out running. There's an awful tendency, somebody runs a 5k today, they feel like they need to run that 5k faster the next time. That's only going to get you injured. It's going to put wear and tear in your body that you might not be ready for. You've no business running fast until you've actually prepared your body to run. I kind of think of it as like one of those old car scenes where the car is being chased and it's coming into the finish line and there's panels falling off and screws rattling loose and wheels wobbling off. That's basically you running fast before you've prepared. You can't push your body to its top speeds unless you've actually prepared the ligaments and the muscles and everything else. And your fitness will actually improve quicker than your muscles and ligaments. So it's quite important to make sure that you're running slow, you're running comfortably, and you're giving yourself a chance to recover from running sessions. A lot of the time when there's somebody running beside you, or maybe you've met somebody in the park, they're sort of a similar age or similar, they kind of look the same, but they're running faster, you suddenly get pulled into competition. You want to run with them or run as fast as them. That person could be, Ireland's top runner who's just out for an easy jog around the local park, and there you are trying to beat him. You have no business trying to beat him. It could also be somebody who's doing sprints, or is doing much harder session than you. So it's kind of none of your business what other people are doing in the park. So don't get pulled into these little invisible races. Stick to what you're doing, run slow, keep it comfortable, and you will see the improvements. And before you know it, you'll start running a lot faster.
So when you're running, you should be able to hold a full sentence without really getting out of breath. This means that running is not too hard, it's not too easy, it's still aerobic. So if you can just about manage a full sentence without losing your breath, that's about the right intensity for your first runs and when you're getting started.
Tip number 3, keep it regular. This kind of comes back to tip number 1 where we said little and often, but what I mean by keeping it regular, don't leave long periods of time without running. You do actually need to keep it up, and if you stop running for months on end or weeks on end, fitness does regress. It will disappear. So don't feel that because you did 2 hours of running today that you're going to be able to just kind of not run for 2 or 3 weeks. The fitness does lose. So you really need to get into just a lifestyle or a routine where you go running regularly, rather than kind of looking at it as if, I have to get out there and do a big hard hour or a tough session today. Just think of it as a case of every morning I get up, go for 20 minutes, whether it's fast or slow, doesn't matter, you're getting the 20 minutes done. And running regularly or at least as regular as your body can manage, is a very, very good way to maintain fitness and build it really, really fast. The only thing to be careful of is you will need to recover. So if you're just beginning and you haven't been running, or you're kind of finding that you're sore, you're wear and tear, leave a day in between the running so that you can recover, but just don't leave it so long that your fitness starts to disappear.
One of my favorite tips is just to go and find somewhere new to run so that you can do a little bit of exploring. It's a really easy way to pass the time and get your run in without it feeling too mentally hard. So just find a new park or your local park and find some new routes to run.
Our fourth tip is to be realistic. If you're just starting back into running, don't expect to be running races. Don't expect to be running PRs. And don't put so much pressure on yourself to set PRs every time you go running. You really need to build up the body. You need to let the fitness come. You need to let your muscles and ligaments adjust and build up the strength so that you don't get injured. Don't get into little races with yourself too early on. If you've just started back, be realistic. You need to build fitness. You need to build endurance. You need to build a bit of durability so that you don't get hurt. And you're only just starting off, so there's no need to start racing straight away. There really isn't. You just need to get back, getting into a good routine, let everything come in its own time. Before you know it, you'll be running pretty quickly. My fifth tip would just be to keep things simple. There's a lot of programs online that talk about fartleks, tempo sessions, threshold sessions, strides, and have all sorts of interval schemes that, in reality, they don't make a whole lot of difference. At least not to a beginner. At the beginning, and for most people, if they just concentrated on building endurance, they'd get a huge amount out of their running. So there's really no need to get too complex. It's just a distraction, and it also puts pressure to try and do something different, or sessions that you're not yet comfortable with. There's also a lot of emphasis on running technique and getting running gait analysis done and things like that. For the vast majority of people, when they're running comfortably and they're not experiencing any pain or anything like that, that's usually their best kind of running style. We're all built differently with different levers, and trying to force some sort of perfect running technique that's been advised by top end professional athletes is just unrealistic. The perfect running technique is built for like a 60 kilo 6 foot runner with legs up to their armpits. When some of us are a little bit heavier, we have to alter our stride to kind of work with our own body type. So I would just say keep it simple. Try and focus on being comfortable running, not experiencing pain, and being able to actually relax and settle down when you're running. And if you're doing that, your technique is going to be pretty good. And if you just focus on building endurance, you're very rarely going to go wrong. You can always add speed work later, and if you've got good endurance to start with, that's a very, very good base to build off. So my fifth bonus tip is to get a really good pair of running shoes. Not all sports shoes and trainers are actually built for running. I had a pair of Asics that I thought were for running that I got in a sale somewhere, and I raced with them for 2 years, and I thought they were fantastic. But then when I upgraded and got a proper pair of running shoes, the difference was enormous. I took a minute off my 5k time. I felt just like momentum was easier to maintain, my speed was easier to keep, and I just didn't feel nearly as beat up. Whereas my old shoes, I had to really work for speed. I ended up getting the Adidas Boston 8. There's a Boston 9 now, but the Boston 8s are what I got, and I found them brilliant. They're really, really comfortable. I use them for long runs, short runs, speed, everything, and they just work fantastic. I'm going to put a link to them in the description below. I do have an affiliate with Wiggle. I find them just very easy to deal with, and the delivery and everything is fantastic, but I'm sure you can get them more local. And just to prove that I'm not just trying to push a shoe, I'm going to show you the shoes that I've had. This was my first Boston 8. It's got at least 1,000 kilometers in it. It's pretty much dead, but I loved it. I loved it so much so that I went and got a new color, which is what I'm running on now for training and for speed work. I just use it for everything. It just works. So I don't really need anything else. And I was so looking forward to racing this year that I actually went and put one for racing, a little bit more flash. So that gives you an idea of the colors that they have. I think that it's just a really good all-round shoe. It's a good place to start, but it does make a difference. So, do spend a little bit of money to get the right equipment. You don't need anything fancy. You don't need the Nike Vaporfly. These kind of shoes will do you fine. So have a look, check them out, and hopefully they help you as much as they help me. So that's it for this week. I hope these tips have helped you, and I hope they encourage you to get out running and give you a little bit of confidence to just get started. Running is a tricky one. It's just so daunting, but once you get going, it's actually not that bad, and you get fit really, really fast. So follow these tips, and I'm sure you'll do fantastic. If you like this, please make sure to subscribe. Please make sure to tell your friends and share. It does help the channel a huge amount. And I do actually have these tips written in an article on my website, so you can check that out later if you just kind of want to read back through things. Until next time, thanks again for joining. See you later.